Hey, Matt, does the existence of a submarine mean there's an existence of a Dom Marine? Hello, and welcome to andMirth, where we talk board games with a dash of booze. If you haven't been here before, we're going through all 750 cocktails of the SAVOY cocktail book while talking about games as well. Those of you who are returning, thank you. You should subscribe so you can keep following us on our journey. This week, we're talking about Ravensburger's Disney Villainous, as well as going through the After Supper, the Alaska, and the Albertine cocktails. One of the other fun things we actually did was we played a socially distant tabletop RPG called Sleepaway. In Sleepaway, you assume the role of camp counselors defending your summer camp from a monster called the Lindworm. It was created by Jay Dragon at Possum Creek Games, and it is definitely worth checking out.
For sure. I think a little bit of it is the pandemic energy that we're dealing with right now, but really, truly, I had such a blast playing this with you guys. Just setting up the atmosphere of the game itself and how it wants you to be so tactile about what you put at the center of the table and how you sort of gather around it and how those things evolve and help you, continue to tell your story. It is a blast of a time. And I would really recommend turning the lights down pretty low, making some like forest noises in the background, and maybe put on like a spooky, not creepy soundtrack to really help set that mood. But it was such a fun time. And I think it was also probably a really good thing to end our week with after we sort of the bloodbath that was Villainous this week.
And this week I played Cruella de Vil. You played Scar and some of the villains from the game. It's an asymmetrical game, so we each had different objectives, which is a little different from some games where everyone has the same objectives. It's really cool, and it's a little more complicated, it sounds, but it's something I definitely enjoyed about this game. So really, I want to get talking more about the nuances. So Matt, what's our first cocktail?
Oh, off to the races. Okay, great. Well, our first cocktail for the week is going to be the After Supper cocktail. For this, we'll be using 1.5 ounce of an Apricot Brandy, 1.5 ounce of Curacao. You'll add 4 dashes of lemon juice, shake and strain them into a cocktail glass, and that will get you this cocktail, the After Supper. All right, so I'm not going to go back on what I've said about the after dinner special. However, it's interesting to me that those 4 dashes of lemon juice are doing so much work. Like it's not good. I'm not going to say it's good, but now it's palatable, which I think is probably the nicest thing I can say about it.
Right. Well, I can say a lot more nice things. That is a delightful cocktail. You're not wrong. Whatever 4 dashes of lemon juice do to those 2 alcohols has made it incredibly drinkable. I'm a huge fan of this. I will definitely be ordering it the next time we go out for a drink, whenever that may be. And all you need is what? Apricot Brandy, Curacao, and some lemon juice. I mean, I can keep those in the house and make this whenever, so I'm super excited about that. Easy to drink, easy to have. Something else that was easy was this week's game, Disney Villainous. It is a 2 to 6 player game for ages 10 and up, published by Ravensburger. What I will say is easy is that you can learn your section pretty quickly. The hard part, as we said earlier, is learning everybody else's. You play individual Disney villains, each of which with their own goals, which is what makes it an asymmetrical game. Because of that, you might have a little less of the fun just table chit chat because you'll be so focused on figuring out what you're doing and what everybody else is doing. But it is great for introducing new players because new players who have played other simpler games are going to be excited to work with Disney characters, and then also learn about a whole new kind of concept of like thinking about what that player is doing and strategizing against them. also, the best part is that all of it is Disney animation. So they took all the unique films and all the unique artwork from those and found a way to coherently tie them into a single villainous game where they are true to their true form, but then also completely in a single tied format, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I love the little tokens. I think they're one of my favorite little game pieces of most board games. The distillation of the character's essence down into an abstracted little token, they're lovely. They're a lovely little element to the game. I agree with what you were saying. I think that it takes me a hot second to get used to my villain, as well as understanding then how the other villains win, which is how you understand how you can thwart their attempts to win, basically. But I always have a blast playing this game with you guys. Whether it gets a bit heated or not, that's for a different thing. But I would say that you should, whenever you're playing it for the first time, just pick up whatever villain you want to play, because you're going to need to play it a couple times to really fully get into it. Plus, the more you understand the more characters, the better idea you'll have of how all the pieces move, so you can strategize within that.
True. Luckily, all of the characters come with a little booklet that tells you how their character works. Everything on the table is free range. So you should be able to look at your neighbor's card and see what's on it and see what they're going to be able to do when they go to certain locations, and read what their end goal and what they have to do to win and learn how to block it. So you're correct. Play your favorite villain and enjoy all that, but you will also have the opportunity to learn everybody at the table pretty easily. So I think that will, help really keep you playing this game over and over again. Speaking of drinking over and over again, I know I will definitely like this one, but you don't. So how about we move on to the next cocktail?
Thank you. I think we should. So for our second cocktail of this week, we're going to be doing the Alaska, which is 2 1/4 ounces of a dry gin, 3/4 of an ounce of a yellow chartreuse. You'll shake and strain those into a cocktail glass, which will get you this lovely little cocktail. Yeah, I think that the gin is very present, which I'm going to assume that is not your favorite, but the chartreuse is a yellow chartreuse, which means that it's a little bit mild and sweeter than its green cousin. I do really enjoy this cocktail. It's very simple, but I would make sure that you are using a gin that you want to sip on, because otherwise it might be a little strong.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a gin I like to sip on, Matt. The gin is very sharp, and it manages to cut through that herby, spicy flavor that's coming out of this chartreuse, which is very unique. I will say I've not had that before, and I enjoyed that unique taste. I won't say this was like the worst gin drink I've had, but it's definitely not something I'm gonna reach for on a drinking basis. Something I will reach for is Disney Villainous, and the rules are pretty simple. Players take control of iconic villains from Disney animated films. Each player has their own villain deck, a fate deck, a player board, and a 3D villain token, all of which is delightful in their art style. On your turn, you move your character token to a location on your board. There, you will have a number of actions available, which can include playing cards from your hand. Cards will have various abilities you will need to use to fulfill your own unique win condition. Other possible actions allow you to choose another player's villain, draw cards from their fate deck, and then play that card on their board. The fate deck contains heroes, items, and effects from that villain's movie, which hinder that particular player's progress. A player wins when their villain's unique win conditions are met. This game is asymmetric, which means that each villain has a different playstyle and path to victory.
And I promise you, this game is much less complicated than it sounds. When you pick it up and start playing it, it really does make a lot more sense, and things are very clearly defined as the actions you can take per turn, which is really lovely in that way. And it's like a joyous experience, so don't be daunted by some of these rules. But on that note, when you're fating another player, the interesting part about it is that not only does it present another set of obstacles for that player to overcome or a hero that they have to vanquish, it actually physically blocks some of the actions that player can take during their turn.
Something else I'll say is that 4 players is a great number to play with to have a really dynamic game. However, it can lead to sort of a pile-on effect where whenever one player is closer to victory, everyone will start fading that one particular player. 3 players is a little more of a rock, paper, scissors thing, so people trade their fading of each other. However, at 5 to 6 players, you end up with what's called a fate token, which protects a player from being faded after they've been faded until a new player has instead been faded. While I've said the word faded quite a few times, what I'm going to do is fate this drink because I don't want to drink it. And Matt, tell us what our third drink is.
That was a garbage transition, but let's fucking do it. So, for the third and final cocktail of this week, we're going to be doing the Albertine cocktail. For this, you'll be using 1 ounce of Kirsch, 1 ounce of Cointreau, 1 ounce of a yellow chartreuse, add just a few drops of maraschino liqueur. You'll shake and strain into a cocktail glass, and that's gonna get you this cocktail. Okay. So if you're following along at home, the recipe actually talks about making this cocktail for 6 people. What we've done for our episodes here is we've pared those recipes down to do single serve so that we can talk about them. So if some of our impressions are a little bit off, that's a good thing to comment about. I actually think that this is kind of a nicely balanced, fruity, spicy cocktail. The Kirsch, which is typically a liqueur that's made from the tart, sour pits of a cherry, and the maraschino, which is a sweetened cherry flavor, they balance each other out into a nice cherry profile that floats on top of like an orange and spicy flavor. And I'm a fan of it. I wouldn't drink a lot, but it's good for this episode.
I agree with all of that. That the cherries are unique. The orange is always delightful. This is a nice like fruit medley in there. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the chartreuse spiciness that's been introduced in this week. I've never had that before. Really interesting. Something else unique to note is about the rules in this game. We explained how it's a little complicated. One of the other things is that, like any Disney villain movie, the villains don't usually prevail. And so in this game, you want to keep an eye on who's currently succeeding. You want to see how they're doing, and that's when you'll start like really doing the whole pile-on effect we talked about, and you'll really start stopping them from getting there and succeeding. And that's sort of the point of the game. You want to have a villain lose, and then that way all the other villains win. Unfortunately, Matt's villain won, which means that he definitely lost the game because that doesn't make any sense in, a Disney movie at all. So it's just again, weird, complicated, I understand, but I wouldn't think too much on it.
No, absolutely not. A, don't confuse the poor people watching this video series. B, do not take away my one very valid win from this game. To be clear, everybody at home, we are all villains playing the game Villainous. So you do eventually want one of the player-controlled villains to win. And while, unfortunately, it does change the course of the Disney film, it means that in this scenario, this boy won that game. I did keep stock of what was happening, and what we were talking about before with the pile-on, I got piled on. And so then I waited, watched, listened. Oh, I'm gonna lose. You guys piled on for the entire game until I was like, bam, bam, I won! So I digress, but it's a good game. I feel like if you're watching this and you were able to follow that rant, you should play it because it is a fun game to play with friends.
Well, I'm done with my drink. How about you, Matt?
I'm going to take a few more sips because it's the sweet taste of victory.
I suppose I should swallow my pride and stomach that you won this week and I lost. Also, I'm going to be, stomaching some cream-based cocktails next week?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to put the lactate I bought a couple weekends ago to pretty good use. We're going to be going through cocktails 10, 11, and 12, which have a lot of use of heavy cream. And we're going to be playing Betrayal on the House on the Hill. If you liked what we're doing, or if you have any thoughts on how we can make improvements, let us know in the comments below.
Also, like this video and subscribe so you can follow along as we continue. But really, like, is a Dom Marine just like covered in leather? It's already really phallic. Like, what would it be?
I need you to stop saying sub and Dom because all I can think about is the fucking Possum Bear.
Chillin' with my man.